We make many decisions in life. Decisions about what we eat are made in the same way. We take decisions considering many factors such as convenience, quality, taste, nutrition, safety and cost. When safety of the food is in question, however, decisions should be made more carefully. The issues related to food decisions are very sensitive, and wrong decisions or negligence can have serious consequences. We need more information to make wise food safety decisions. We need to know where the food comes from, what it contains, and which foods are safe for us to eat. With more information, we will be able to make appropriate decisions. In this program, we are going to study food hazards and contaminants. Food contains natural chemicals from the original plant or animal sources. It may also come in contact with many natural and artificial substances during production, processing, and preparation. All of these potentially harmful substances in food are called hazards. We should be aware of the range of potential food hazards and of their sources. These include physical, chemical, and biological hazards. If the risk of hazards is to be minimized, we should be aware that hazards need to be controlled at all stages of food production. Now we first take up physical hazards. Physical hazards are foreign particles that get introduced into the food during any of the processes of crop production. Some examples are strings, jute, fabrics, nails, nuts, bolts, hair, buttons, metal, glass, jewelry, wood, twigs, plastic, fragments, feathers, parts of pests, insulation material, etc. Physical hazards in food can harm our gastrointestinal tract. As we winnow or clean and sieve food grains, we remove these hazards, insect and rodent droppings, and insect or worm parts which find their way into the grains and their products. It is difficult to separate out parts or droppings of pests from the food. We need to prevent rat or insect infestation in the first place. Storage conditions must be appropriate, such as this village-level silo, to prevent attack by rodents and insects. We now come to chemical hazards. Chemical hazards include pesticide, insecticide and fungicide residues, heavy metals such as zinc, lead, aluminium, mineral oils like diesel, grease, hydraulic oil, antibiotics, veterinary residues, and additives. Pollution of air, water and soil introduce chemical hazards into our foods. Industries spew out smoke into the surrounding air. The smoke dries out and burns the leaves of crops near the industries. The dust that settles on plants in polluted environments is rich in toxins. When we eat such foods, they can cause severe damage to our health. As in the case of air, water also gets polluted by industries. Factories release effluents or wastes into drains. These effluents may contain a cocktail of deadly chemicals which find their way into each step of the food chain, from plant to animal to human. Toxins get more and more concentrated. This is called bioconcentration. Since human beings are often found at the top of the food chain, you can imagine how much higher is the level of toxins in our tissues as compared to that in plants. Take the example of fish. As the fish feed on the small microscopic plants, they concentrate the toxins. When we eat the fish, our bodies concentrate it even more. Now let us learn more about each of the chemical hazards in greater detail. We begin with pesticides. Pesticides, fungicides and insecticides are very effective in killing pests, but unfortunately they are poisonous for us as well. The pesticides present on the surface or absorbed by plants enter our bodies through our food. Rodenticides are inserted into grain at village storage bins and rooms. This prevents attack by rats and mice. However, traces may remain in the food. This can be dangerous. When eating animal and plant products, the residual pesticide compounds reach the tissues of man and animal. Besides causing acute and chronic toxicity, these pesticides can affect the immune system and cause rheumatoid arthritis, reduced fertility, increased cholesterol and high infant mortality. They affect genes, causing genetic disorders, and also reduce lifespan in humans and livestock. DDT, for example, has been very widely used for decades. While the concentration in surface waters, lakes and rivers may be only 1 part per million or ppm, the plants growing in the water, algae and plankton may contain as much as 500 ppm. But the fish feeding on these plants accumulate as much as 10,000 parts per million. When we eat the fish, our bodies will accumulate much higher amounts through the same process of bioconcentration. We now talk of heavy metals. Together with essential nutrients, plants and animals take up small amounts of contaminant heavy metal compounds and can concentrate them. Certain heavy metals such as lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic have been recognized to be potentially toxic within specific limited values. The health hazards caused by heavy metals include cancer, damage to kidneys, lungs, effect on synthesis of hemoglobin, paralysis and brain damage, genetic damage, harm to the fetus, hardening and cracking of palms and soles. Talking now of mineral oils. Like heavy metals, mineral oils can also cause problems. Machines used to process food, especially those with moving parts such as sugarcane juicers, are regularly lubricated with grease. If these procedures are not carefully done, the highly toxic grease can find its way into the food. And now talking about antibiotics and veterinary drug residues. When veterinary drugs or agrochemicals are administered to animals, their metabolic system works to eliminate the chemicals from the body. The livers of animals get affected first, and it passes on to humans when they consume animal foods. Of course, the concentration in the liver would be the maximum. The milk will also contain residues. The drugs frequently used are antibiotics, steroid hormones, anti-worm and anti-parasitic drugs, antifungal agents. Now let us give you an example. Chemicals rubbed onto the skin and udders include antibiotics. Drugs like hormones may be injected into poultry or buffaloes. They find their way into meat and milk and are then consumed by human beings. Growth promotion hormones have been found to cause cancer, that is, they are carcinogenic. The water supply in poultry farms may contain drugs. Their feeds may also contain them. The antibiotic residues cause allergies and build up antibiotic-resistant organisms. The most common additives added to food are artificial colors. The natural color of fruits and vegetables are lost due to exposure to light, air, and extreme temperature and moisture and storage conditions. Farmers or sellers may soak the vegetables in color to keep the vegetables looking fresh. In addition, processed foods frequently have added color and flavor. Some of the colors are not even permitted for use in food. Others are present in much higher amounts than permitted. Manufacturers use preservatives in processed food to increase the shelf life of products. This is a common practice all over the world. But some preservatives and colors are dangerous and are not permitted. In the long term, the use of some of them can cause cancer. They may also cause gastrointestinal damage and liver damage. Some of them can cause genetic damage and birth defects if consumed by pregnant women. In fact, even permitted colors and flavors cannot be used above a certain permitted limit. We have discussed chemical hazards in great detail. Now let us learn more about the biological hazards. Biological hazards include bacteria, naturally occurring plant toxins like alkaloids, cyanogen glycosides, fungal toxins like ergot and mycotoxins, parasites like Cyclospora, Entamoeba, Giardia, Cryptosporidium viruses, example hepatitis A, Norwalk virus, rotavirus. In addition to these, worms may be present in food which may be eaten. Biological hazards can be added through unclean environments. The same water in the pond used for washing buffaloes or in which the buffaloes soak themselves may find its way into our water supply. This water can contain several disease-producing organisms. Because the same nutrients in foods are also the same nutrients microbes need for their growth, food spoilage is inevitable. Bruised or crushed fruits and vegetables make it easier for microorganisms to enter from outside and spoil the food. But as we all know, food spoilage is not the only issue of concern. Some of the microorganisms growing in food cause food infections and some can even kill. Now, which bacteria cause food infections? Some of them are E. coli, Salmonella, Staphylococcus, Shigella, Clostridium botulinum, and so on. Infection by them usually causes the same basic symptoms of acute gastroenteritis, abdominal discomfort and pain, and diarrhea. But symptoms vary from mild gastric distress to death, depending on the type of bacterial infection. Transmission is usually passed via the fecal-oral route with the ingestion of the pathogen in contaminated food. Salmonella typhi causes typhoid. Shigella, Staphylococcus cause nausea and vomiting and occasionally death. The toxin produced by Clostridium botulinum causes a condition called botulism. Botulism can be fatal. This organism grows in cans where available oxygen is low. Now, there are numerous varieties of fungi ranging from those commonly growing in woods and fields to microscopic species that can infest growing or stored crops. These species live on dead organic matter that they decompose, while many can cause diseases in plants. Food prepared from the fungus affected crops leads to serious health damage in humans and livestock. Aspergillus and ergot are examples of fungi which attack crops and produce toxins. Aspergillus attacks cereals, oilseeds like groundnuts, spices, milk. Now, the fungus produces the highly toxic aflatoxins. These toxins are carcinogenic, mutagenic and immunosuppressive. Ergot grows on standing crops such as wheat or rye. Consumption of ergot along with the grains causes ergotism. The symptoms of ergotism range from vomiting, diarrhea, hallucinations to convulsions and gangrene. Parasites include tapeworm, roundworm, hookworm and so on, while most of the parasites are transmitted through meat such as tapeworm and roundworm. Hookworm enters the body, piercing the feet. There are some dangerous one-celled parasites like the Entamoeba, which causes amoebic dysentery. Giardia is another example of an organism causing diarrhea. Eating contaminated raw fruits and vegetables and drinking contaminated water causes amoebiasis and giardiasis. Viruses can also cause infections. Hepatitis, a common foodborne infection, is associated with hepatitis A virus and is a common example. The bird flu that rocked the poultry business continues to be of concern in many parts of the world even today, with the H5N1 subtype being of most public health significance. Poultry farms can be major sites for breeding and spreading the avian or bird flu. Of greater concern to us is that the virus may change its form or mutate so that it attacks human beings. We have so far talked about physical, chemical and biological hazards in foods. Now let us turn our attention to contaminants. What are contaminants? Contaminants are chemical substances that enter our food unintentionally during processing, preparation, treatment, packaging, transportation or holding. Contaminants are toxic or hazardous substances in soil, water or air that may increase health risks depending on the likelihood of exposure and toxicity. Some examples of contaminants are dioxins and PCBs, acrylamide, toxins from food contact materials, packaging, radionuclides. Now, dioxins and polychlorinated biphenyls are long-lasting environmental contaminants. Manufacturing processes generate them as byproducts. They are very stable and do not readily break down. Like pesticides, they bioaccumulate or bioconcentrate. Their adverse health effects include carcinogenicity, immunotoxicity, reproductive and developmental effects. Acrylamide is a contaminant introduced into cereal and tuber-based foods during processing at high temperature. Now, it can cause cancer. Packaging materials which are directly in contact with food may contain toxins which migrate from the package into the food. Food contact materials can be sources of toxins with adverse health effects as well. The last group of contaminants, called radionuclides, is generated in our food because of radioactive fallout. Radionuclides are released into the environment through accident or poor disposal or other means. They can cause harmful effects of radioactive contamination. These products are very toxic and even can cause cancer and genetic damage. Every year, millions of people around the world become sick as a result of consuming contaminated and unsafe food. In recent years, the occurrence of serious outbreaks of foodborne diseases on practically every continent has demonstrated both their public health and social significance. Besides the human suffering, the consequences of foodborne illness for a country like ours are particularly severe. The burden of disease strains healthcare systems and affects economic productivity in general, while uncontrolled contamination of food affects the development of sustainable food production systems. Good agricultural and manufacturing practices are essential to manage hazards and contaminants, establish control procedures, and remedial actions.